We're live. So I wanted to start doing these live sessions every Wednesday where I picked a piece of artwork that I really admired and I drew it and sketched it and also kind of learned more about the painting. So one of my favorite paintings at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City is this one of Juan de Pareja by Velasquez, and a really interesting story about the painting and how it happened and all of that. And I wanted to kind of share that with you guys while I did the painting of him. And he's over here, right here. So I can switch on and off. I'm going to use my iPad today to work from our sketch here, or from this is what I'm going to be drawing from, using an iPad with the Apple Pencil. My desk here is a little bit crazy since this is the very first one. I'm going to set it up so that you guys can also ask questions, and I can check that out right now. I'm streaming currently on Facebook as well as YouTube. So if you guys are on Facebook, I'm probably only going to be doing this next Wednesday on YouTube. So if you aren't following me on YouTube, but you're following me on Facebook, go check it out on YouTube, and I appreciate any subscriptions or subscribes or likes and all that stuff. It really helps, again, to grow the channel. And I just got to do some little, find out where my options are for seeing where people can comment. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, got it. So we got comments here and reactions. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see the comments on Facebook. I know that YouTube comments do come through. Awesome, guys. So let me switch up my view here to go to the iPad. Now, before we kind of start, it's interesting. So Velasquez took a trip to Rome he was there from 1649 to 1651. He made a trip to Italy. So he was there for a good 2 years, give or take, and he brought along with him his assistant. We say that that's a nice term, his assistant. Juan de Pareja was actually his enslaved person, which is really disgusting nowadays. Juan de Pareja, who is featured in this, was a model for a painting that Diego did when after his long boat ride to Italy from Spain. He used as kind of a warm-up to paint the Pope. So he was asked to paint Pope Innocent X at the time, and he decided to paint Juan de Pareja, who was actually of African descent but born in southern Spain, and he was born into slavery, Juan de Pareja, and he worked he was pretty much his assistant, Diego Velasquez's assistant, for about 20 years. So he did the painting of we'll start here with the drawing. So for everyone that wants to know, so I'm using my layers here. My first layer is a layer of an old insert for a book that I have, which is, I forget, it's like a poetry book or something. I usually took my end papers for some old books that were weathered and had texture to them, and I took really high-res photographs of those so that I could use those as backgrounds for iPad paintings, so that they would give a little bit of texture, make the drawings look a little bit more real, like real drawings, but done digitally. And so this is one of those end papers for one of the books. And you can see in here, you can see where there's kind of stains and there's a little bit of texture. That's how I did that. And I use that on layer 1. And I don't draw into layer 1 because if I erase away, which I don't do a lot of erasing, it'll cut through the paper and go to the background color. So I'm using Procreate. And so this layer right here is layer 2, is where I'm going to draw. And I keep it really, really simple here because this is more about understanding the shapes and organization and the composition of what we're drawing versus the understanding kind of like the paint aspect of it. This is like the drawing aspect of this painting. What is it? The compositionally, it's really beautiful. And how do we get that in our drawings? Sorry guys, it's morning and I'm just having my coffee now. I wonder if I can bring up a little, if you guys want to see me or not here. If I can do a little photo and window. Hey guys, how's it going? Hey Kim and Rodney, good to see you guys here. Let me see if, thanks for bearing with me. I'm gonna get better at this over the years, hopefully. Okay, so I think I can change the size of this window. Okay, cool. In case you guys want to see me, I do a lot of hand gestures as I draw. Maybe we'll put me down here so I'm out of the way. Okay. Hopefully that's a good, well, maybe up here is a better spot. Cool. Hey guys. Yeah, so grab your coffee and guys, feel free to draw from the screen along with me. And I'll kind of do this step by step. And also kind of printed out a whole bunch of ideas and facts and stuff about this painting because I thought it was really incredible. So doing these lives where I get to draw with you guys, I'm going to try to do this every Wednesday. Helps me to learn about the paintings. You know, some of my favorite paintings. I didn't realize that a lot of that this painting was actually exhibited in the Pantheon in Rome at the time, which was really cool. Because if you guys go to Rome, you go to the Pantheon. Can you imagine an art exhibit in middle of the 17th century at the Pantheon? Stuff like that, the romance of this art and the tradition is pretty special to me. Awesome, guys. So let's start. I'm going to start composing. Okay, again, really quick. I'm using a Derwent pencil here because it kind of gives a graphite charcoal kind of vibe to the painting. And I'm also using my eraser here, which is also a Derwent. I do want to, you guys can't see on the side here, my sliders for, let me see if I can switch those to right-handed. Preferences here, gesture controls, we'll do right hand. Okay, so now you guys can see, like right below me here is my size of the brush that I'm using and the opacity. It does, Procreate does a left hand, right hand thing. And so having it, the image of Diego Velasquez, which is over there, way over there, that I'm going to be sketching from, is covering the Procreate screen. Awesome, guys. Hey, Eric, how's it going? It's good to see people on here. Oh, Rodney's having his coffee also. Oh, cool. It's funny. I get real-time updates when people pledge $5 a month on my Patreon page. I just got one. It's kind of neat. So here's my coffee cup. So this Wednesday, we're going to kind of do some rituals, I guess, every Wednesday. Even though I know people will probably watch this. This is streaming on July 30th at 9 a.m. It's a Wednesday. We're going to do Wednesday drawing. I'll try to have a different coffee cup every time. This is my coffee cup I got with my son at Disney World. He's a big Star Wars fan, and so we went to Batuu, Galaxy's Edge. Not sponsored by Disney at all, but it's also like, I love this one because it's giant. And so when I finish my first cup and I still have some coffee in there, I can put more coffee on top to warm it up because it's a big enough cup. We just use Keurig right now and Nespresso. Awesome. What type of coffee are you guys drinking out there? Christine goes, oh, this is going to be fun. Thanks for taking the time out to teach us. Yeah, this is fun for me. Wednesday mornings. We'll see how we do travel a lot, my wife and I, usually for teaching or just for vacations and stuff. And so I'm going to try to do every Wednesday. And if there's other paintings that you guys want me to do drawings of, that would be great too. Maybe full figures versus portrait, all that stuff. Lars is asking a question. Curious, is Mark making one direction type of movement for you? I find myself, I have a tendency to fall back into this back and forth movement, which messes up accuracy. I'm going to try to talk about that when we're drawing. I tend to think about the form when I'm making marks. And usually how our hand kind of moves across the form and across paper is kind of our own personal handwriting. And so in a lot of cases, I don't want students to alter their handwriting because then you lose what it is that makes the drawing yours. And so as a teacher, I try to kind of embrace what the student does naturally and naturally well, or what your tendency is. You want to embrace your temperament and your tendencies to be able to understand things. But if it is messing up your accuracy, there's ways that you can just practice, I think. Accuracy, I think, is just about getting the right thing in the right spot, or close enough, and then understanding where to move it left or right. That said, let's start sketching a little bit here. So I'm going to try to do about an hour. We'll see how it goes. It's already 9:12. So I start with my pen, again, using the Derwent. I'm going to repeat myself a lot because sometimes I get comments. People don't watch the entire video and comment and ask questions that are clearly already stated in the video, and I've been guilty of that as well, so not a big deal. I like to turn my size of my brush really up to 100%. And what's interesting about the brush is that if you hover, right, you can see that, so my brush is tilted at an angle like this, which gives me the largest movement. And if I tilt it, see it gets smaller. Now, unfortunately, within Procreate, the only thing I can do so you can see the cursor the best way possible is to put on contrast, hover contrast, but it is kind of small, unfortunately. You can see I'm kind of dancing over here in the middle of the page. That's because my it's upright, right? It's at a 90-degree angle to the page, to the iPad. And then I'm going to try to talk about the areas that I'm working on the most, because some people do have a hard time seeing the cursor, unfortunately. That's kind of a downfall, I think, of drawing on the iPad. For all of its pros, that is a minor con, I believe. Hey, Deum Arts, sitting back and enjoying the process. Awesome, guys. Yeah, so again, Juan de Pareja, who was Diego Velasquez's assistant, which unfortunately at that time, it's worth knowing that enslaved labor at the time was used in artistic workshops. This is the middle of the 17th century, so around like 1650 when this was painted, and they were used. Painters used enslaved labor. Unfortunately, sculptors, silversmiths, woodworkers. It was commonplace in Spain, and in Spain at that time, there was it's very close to Africa, northern Africa, and so that's where, unfortunately, within the slave trade and folks of Moorish descent, there wasn't the equality that we hope to achieve today, even back then. So let's start with the composition. So I'm going to handle like drawing stuff and lessons, as well as we're going to learn more about Juan de Pareja, who became an amazing artist in his own right. I actually. It's funny when you travel around and you go to museums. I remember seeing one of Juan de Pareja's paintings for the first time in a museum, being like, "Oh, that's that guy, the subject of one of my favorite paintings by Velasquez." It was cool to see one of his paintings in a museum as well. Okay, so composition. So we use the CAM system, right? CAM system is compose, anchor, and then measure out. And so we want to think about placing. Oh, that's a little too dark. I'm going to change my opacity here down to about maybe like 40%. Thinking about the top of the head, where's the chin going to be, the shoulder, kind of thinking about where he's going to kind of sit. And I'm going to roughly use the image on the other side here as kind of my guide to kind of be able, hopefully you guys can scan across and see. The one thing is that on the iPad itself has no image at all. The image of Juan de Pareja is actually on my Ecamm Live broadcast software. You can see I can kind of move that on my iPad screen. I'm sorry, on my computer screen, not on my iPad. So learning a lot. So I might actually be moving him to fit my sketch. We'll see. Even though I'm using him and also my reference, which is like right here, so you guys can see, which is on the screen a little bit. I have a lot of paperwork around here. This is, again, the inaugural Wednesday. We need like a name for this, right? Wednesday drawing. What makes this painting great while drawing? Oops, okay, so off that. Cool. So composing, thinking about, he has this kind of, I'm thinking almost square-like head. or like for this block in, I'm squinting a lot, trying to kind of decide where things are going to kind of sit within the composition here. I have this small little window on my iPad here that I can draw versus the whole iPad, which is fine because I want to show you guys the reference as well. And so compositionally, where does it kind of sit? Where does he sit? And I want to use broad expressive lines, right? So using kind of the side of the brush, of the pencil. I think of drawing and painting as so similar. It's like Apple pencil, Apple brush. I don't know. Hey, R Dubaya and Claire. Good morning, guys. Hope you guys have your coffee. If I sound like I'm distracted, I guess, I don't know. This is like hanging out, right? So thinking about composition, where's his head kind of sit as we kind of pull around the structure of the side of his face with his hair. It's pretty cool. And the Met just had a show, I think, of Juan de Pareja's work, which is kind of cool. And I think this painting was in that show. And just Velasquez being the incredible artist that he was. I'm reading, do you guys read a lot of art books? I read a lot of art books in my spare time. Kind of addicted to this thing that we do. And I read a book recently called The Judgment of Paris by Ross King. And in there he talks about how Manet was inspired by Velasquez and going to Spain. And again, this idea, we see things modern today is like the Prado Museum in Spain. It's interesting to see Manet in like 1860 traveled to Spain and went to the Prado Museum and saw Velasquez's paintings. And that was like 200 years ago, 160 years ago. Kind of interesting to see, like, we're as modern day painters, we still kind of follow in the footsteps of these painters like Manet, and then also where he was following in the footsteps of Velasquez. Kind of reminds me of that movie, A Midnight in Paris. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where he goes back in time to see not T.S. Eliot. Was it T.S. Eliot? Anyway, and Hemingway and all those guys. And then from there, who those guys were inspired by. And then he goes back even further in time. Kind of interesting. Sorry, guys. Rodney says, I was going to say Wednesday Drawing Club, but I think it has a similar name. Might confuse things. New to the channel, but enjoy your artworks, but must ask, do you mainly draw portraits or do you have demos and other parts of the anatomy as well? I tried doing some full figure stuff, and I do have some drawings on the channel of Proudhon full figures. Unfortunately, the algorithm doesn't love those, but I am going to be doing, I think, maybe some compositional type sketches of paintings as well within, I think, this series, which might be kind of nice to think about as well. Now I'm thinking composing him. I think he's got a pretty good spot here on the page. Let me kind of hone in on some areas just to simplify. Thinking what is going on geometrically, right? We want to think very geometrically in the very beginning. Where's the collar coming through? Okay, that looks okay. Thinking about how this is, I'm going to do a different layer just to show you guys, thinking about like this as a triangle, right? When I was talking about the head, this is a block, essentially, right? This, and just using my sketch that I already have on here as my reference. It's all straight angular lines in the very beginning, just to compose. Where does this come in and over? Like we have the shirt kind of leads in, right? So that's what we want to think about in the very beginning, is when we compose, we want to compose things in a very large abstract way, even though they're still built on, I guess, analytical abstraction, right? It's the abstraction built on something else. Rodney saying Dan Sprick. Did I miss something about that? I like Dan's work a lot. Dan's great. So we're going to get rid of this layer and just show you guys kind of what my thought process is to develop things in a very squinted, blocked in way. Just really quick, if you guys are on Facebook for some reason and you guys are commenting, I can't see it on my end here. I apologize. I feel like all these comments are coming in from the YouTube channel. So if you guys are on Facebook, jump over to YouTube real quick. YouTube, I think, is a little bit different of a better experience, I think, than Facebook. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I have a new microphone and everything. Okay, cool. So back to the composition here. So again, thinking about how those shapes are all interacting with one another here is something that's really important. So again, I'm going to do those same kind of ideas I was thinking about. They'll probably be a little bit more accurate now that I can see better. This comes down. This cuts across. Now it's really interesting as we do this. My phone's ringing. The trip, right? So we think about traveling like by airplane to different places, but back then, I think Velasquez had to travel, it was like 2 to 4 weeks on a boat from Spain to Rome. And even I think when you get into, okay, so here's what he did. It's kind of cool. He started out in Malangia. I don't even know how, my Spanish is horrible, but he started out at a port at a small town in Spain, and he took a boat literally to Genoa in Italy, which actually is not that close to Rome. If you guys know, Rome is actually, not close to Genoa. Anyway, and then he traveled over land for a while to get to. So imagine if you're traveling probably 2 months or a month and a half just to get to Italy. So he did this painting of Juan de Pareja over here as his warm up, because I don't think you're painting on a boat or as you're traveling. Oh, thanks, Rodney. Charles is asking, do I do initial sketches with charcoal or pencil? I do a lot of charcoal sketches before I do most of my work. I've been playing around with a little bit more of a kind of an alla prima block-in style. I've been painting for an exhibition that's coming up in September in Austin, Texas, and in that show, I'm showing some Western inspired work, which is like very Americana and kind of fun stuff. And it was like an honor to be asked to be part of the show called The Far West that's put on by a friend of mine, Mark Maggiore. And kind of excited. Shayna and I are going to be there, and we have family in Austin. My wife's family. My wife grew up in Austin and went to University of Texas. And so we're going to visit family. And someone's asking, Juan de Pareja was exhibited at the Pantheon in Rome. Yes, it was. Really interesting story about that arts channel, which is great. If you guys know any facts on here, feel free to share them. That's amazing. What's really cool is that there's a story of him actually bringing the painting to the Pantheon. After it was painted, there's like what Art said, is there was a big exhibition in the Pantheon. And if you guys you go to Rome, you go to the Pantheon. It's beautiful. It's actually where Raphael, the painter, is buried. My wife, I'm a big Raphael fan, and every summer we teach, or last summer we taught in Urbino, Italy, where Raphael grew up. I actually got to visit his bedroom, which was insane, and also the rooms that he kind of grew up in his home in Urbino. But the fact that he is buried in the Pantheon, which is one of my favorite places in Rome. But when Velasquez finished this painting, he gave it to Juan de Pareja to bring to the Pantheon. And as he brought it to the Pantheon, people were like, which is the painting? People were like, who do I talk to? Do I talk to the painting or do I talk to Juan de Pareja? Like, who is, because it was like what Arts just wrote. He goes, it is the truth, refers to what painting truth was like back in the time. And that's what makes this painting really, really incredible. The context of the history of it, which is why I chose to sketch it today. Trying to balance out the history with the sketching. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys too much. But the story was really interesting. Yeah, he delivered the painting and viewers were stunned. They didn't know whether to speak to the painting or the man standing in front of them when he delivered it. Which is also really kind of interesting, is like for the time period, for Velasquez to paint his enslaved assistant, right, his slave, and elevate his slave in such a like noble way, makes the painting really special as well. He really he's celebrating Juan de Pareja, which I think which was different at the time. So actually after a few months after he painted this, he got this another little nugget of history, I guess. Velasquez signed his papers and set him free. Let's see, I have that written down here. I think it was couple months after, few months later, after Velasquez painted this painting, he signed the papers promising to free Pareja by 1654. So he was in Italy until 1651, and then 3 years later, he was going to be freed. He signed papers saying, I'm going to free you in a few years. And then after he did that, he freed him. And that decision actually opened the door for Pareja to become a successful painter in his own right, like I was saying. And the one time I saw one of Juan de Pareja's paintings, again, being a fan of this painting, and the man in this painting, Juan de Pareja, was at the Ringling Museum in Florida, in Ringling, in Sarasota, Florida, I think the Ringling Museum is. There's a Juan de Pareja painting, and just reading that it was his was just like kind of mind-blowing. You know, you make these connections of context within painting, which I find really interesting, you know, to the point of like where there's stories of like Dürer traveling through Italy and may have met Michelangelo at some point. And that stuff is kind of cool. And then thinking about Da Vinci living out the last 3 years of his life in France, and where did that happen? You know, stuff like this, just for me, it adds to what we are as artists. We're not just technicians. We kind of are in this tradition of painting, which I find kind of exciting. Anyway, back to sketching. It's funny, I keep moving my reference photo to get to all the notes I took on this piece. Now, what was also really great about Velasquez at this time, so he was very much about this kind of impressions of large areas within paintings, which kind of corresponds to how we're sketching him right now, is these impressions of shapes rather than sitting on something and rendering it out. It was all about he was essentially like the first, you could see where the first painter to think about abstract shapes and edges and large masses and how they kind of conform, where you don't have to, if we look at his eyes, right, his eyes aren't super rendered, they're very gestural. Okay, so let's get back to the sketch, making sure I'm on the right layer because I talk. I want to think about light and dark right now, since that'll help with the composition. So let's kind of come in and kind of do an overall wash of the hair. Again, kind of simplifying what's going on here. And then we have his lace collar. And then simplify the bodice of what he's wearing, which is kind of cool. It's like got a cape. Yeah, and even like the traveling for Velasquez coming to Rome, it's like having to deal with the weather as being different and how calm seas and different times of year to kind of go. Let me get his neck in here. Do a plumb line straight up and down from his neck, almost from the center point of his nose, comes down to where his neck is going to be. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That might change. Everything might change. Kind of putting him onto this canvas here. Yeah, so reading, it's like they had pirates back then, you know, and they had to avoid pirates taking over their boat as they were traveling. Can you imagine being a pirate and running into Velasquez? It almost sounds, I think of these stories as very cinematic, and what would it be like to be in that movie of this story? I think it could be a really compelling movie as well. Sorry, morning coffee. That said, if there's any other people you want me to kind of do this with, it's kind of fun. My wife had this idea where she's like, you need to do the dark history of what it is you're sketching. Kind of like Bailey Sarian. She's a big Bailey Sarian fan. We listen to her sometimes. She does the dark history of like murders and true crime and stuff like that. There's some of that in art. You know, the person that in my mind when I think of that is Caravaggio, you know, where he had a crazy backstory. Hey, thanks, Rodney. Oh yeah, Art said, I don't want you guys to lose the if you're watching this later on in the stream and they don't have the chat going that I'm referring to. Can you do it? Someone's asking about doing a studio tour in the future. I'm definitely going to do a studio tour. Yeah, I love my space. The only thing is that it's kind of a little confined, and for some reason during the summer there's flies. And so I think there's a fly in here right now, which is scary for me. Not scary, but just annoying. Yep. Art says that this painting, again, like I talked about earlier, was a warm-up for his Pope Innocent X. And we'll talk about Pope Innocent X painting as well, because they're very similar. Awesome. So, okay, so we compose, we get kind of the hair in here. And so I've been doing videos on proportions lately. Well, on my channel. I've only been doing the channel for about 6 months, and it's been incredible. And so, again, I appreciate everybody that's on there or on here right now watching, because you guys have really helped my channel to grow. I think I've gotten probably a lot of subscribers recently. Kind of took a few weeks off in July so I could work on some paintings for a show. But other than that, so again, we're using that Derwent pencil. So in one of the videos, early videos I launched in like December of last year, it was talking about this idea, the Dyke Z. Okay, so then in the video, I talk about how if we're composing his head, right, based on the other what we have across from us, our reference, right, the brow ridge, and you can do the Dyke Z from either side. So we're going to take the side from the shadow side, right? So where's his eyes? And this is our idea of understanding where kind of the center point is of the painting, which is our eyes, our anchor point, right? And so I'm going to exaggerate that. Now what that helps us to do is kind of think about the shadow shape underneath the nose, right? Where, and then I'm kind of going down, where's the length of the mustache, using that as a measuring point, where's the lips. And so our anchor is going to be our eyes. Thinking about these dark shapes, and I'm not worried about the light in the eyes yet. I'm using just the orbital cavity as, let me get some more darken with my brush here, as this entire shape is being our orbital cavity. And it might not be the correct exact shape right now, but we're going to use that as our basis of what we're going to use to measure. Right? Made him look like Batman. And so we simplify this entire shape. Right, and then we come over and we simplify this entire shape. Now, thinking about the brow ridge and not the brow, and then the length of, this is the Z right here. I'm going to use a different color so that you guys can see kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm going to do a different layer as well. Just kind of making sure I got all the comments and questions. If you guys have any questions about this, feel free. So, brow ridge. I'm going to change the opacity so you guys can really see. Brow ridge. Down to the length of the nose. Right? And then straight across from the nose. Right? Where the underplane is. Now, what is the underplane? That's when the shadow... that's where the division between the light, the top of the nose, and then the shadow part underneath the nose within him is showing. And so if we kind of can get the length of this shape, the length of this, and the length and angle of this. So we want to know two aspects of every line. We want to know the length of it, right? From where it starts to where it kind of meets with the length. That's the distance, right, across. And we want to get the angle as accurate as possible. The angle of this edge, that length of the nose, and that the pull of the thing. So as we zoom in here, right? That's really important. So people have messaged me or comments that they don't understand what the Van Dyke Z is. And what it is you're making 3 lines. The top line is based around the brow ridge. Where the line from the brow ridge hits the length of the nose, the one that goes your horizontal to your vertical to your horizontal. That is your Z. And I'm taking a little bit of time extra on this because I want to explain it fully. Now, what's important about the brow ridge, your first horizontal, is again, the length from where the brow ridge is to where it meets the nose, right? You want to know that distance. You also want to know the angle of that. Same, you want to know 2 aspects to each of these lines, of these 3 lines. And you can see it on the model. And if you put it on the model, and what it is so you draw it based on what you see on the model. People are like, well, I don't know, where's the Z attached to? You see it, the brow ridge with the light on the model, and then where it hits the model's nose, goes down and over. Now, you might not get it perfect right away, right, by doing it, but then you look at the model to see where those lengths and distances are. And it's a way of training your eye and also being able to see how to get a likeness pretty quickly within a sketch. Okay? Hope that helps. So going back to using the colors here. Okay, so then that I am hidden layer. I always do that. We'll go back to this layer right here. Cool. So that's how I use to find that distance from this right here. Oops. Brow ridge to the nose. Oops. And over. Okay. I hope that helps. Okay. So when we have the chin, this pulls down and over here. Oop. I was expecting you to draw the Z from the other side of the face. You can do it from either side of the face. That's important to know as well. Okay? So, any other questions about the Z at all? What is incredible about this painting is the relationship of the gray-green background and the skin tone, showing how Velasquez did not paint the face in isolation. It was impressionist in relationships. Arts, that sounds awesome. Thanks again. Do you kind of sound like, are you Chat GTP? These are very kind of clinical aspects. Okay, so back to our sketch here. And once we get kind of that idea of where our nose is, where that length right through there, we're measuring down from these areas now. Right, how this comes down and over. I love the mustache, which is pretty incredible. Using this space from the eyes. We could throw in just where kind of the gesture of where the eyes are going to be. That's going to come around. Now I'm at full value right now. I'm going to use the eraser to come in and just slightly undo that. Lighten up what's going on here. Awesome. So also I kind of want to shore up some of these darks. Are you guys drawing along with me? I hope. How that comes down and over. So it's really interesting. This was his test painting, like his kind of warm up for Pope Innocent X, which I think is Pope Innocent X was definitely a guy that had opinions. And if you go to Rome, my wife and I used to teach in Rome all the time. I'm going to darken, keep that a little bit. Simplify this entire idea here. Thinking of the values. Oh, right on. Cool. So once we get kind of the orbital cavities in with the dark that kind of pulls over the cheekbone, we're measuring out now. So this is the CAM method, right? We had mentioned measuring out after we compose. My phone's going off, sorry guys. Wednesdays, art history, drawing, sketching, Wednesdays. I don't know, I can't think, I need to think of some cooler names. Think of it, the shadow shape here. This part of the nose pulls into the mustache. His neck comes about here, and so I see the fly. Simplify this whole shape in here. Now, I like to, when I work with charcoal, is I like to push and pull the values so that they kind of can unify a little bit. And I'm going to do an overall kind of wash over him so that we can kind of carve into it. So it unifies the darks and lights a little bit. And so what I do is I take the opacity down pretty far, and I use a big brush again, and I just kind of cover the drawing, even on the same layer. A little bit more opacity here. It helps me to kind of get a unified tone. And that scratching that you guys hear is, I have a plastic kind of paper-like skin over top of my painting on the iPad here, so that it feels, it's not as slick of a surface. It's kind of focusing on the face. I want to make sure you guys can see it well. Okay, cool. Wednesday, coffee and composition. I like that. Drummer. So we can come in with the eraser, right? Get these really beautiful kind of, again, impressionistic kind of movements that we see in the portrait. And we can trim in some of these areas that are just simplified right now, like that brow ridge, this light over the upper lid. So also when I draw and I concentrate, I think my voice gets a little lower. Hopefully you guys, I'm kind of trying to speak right into the microphone as well. Are you going to paint, or is this just charcoal? This is actually on the iPad. So I'm going to just focus on composition, light and dark, and drawing today, and the history of this painting. I love these lights that he has in these eyes. Just really simple. He really hits that brow ridge there. Ooh, did you guys hear the fly? That's trapped in my room, in my studio. Oops, iPad turned off. So really thinking about composition of, well, composing, getting him kind of established with lights and darks first. This comes up and around. This leads us into the nasal labial fold right there. Into kind of can simplify the beard a little bit, but understand the shape of it a little bit better. This cuts across. This comes up. We want to think about, I start with these really straight angular lines, and as I start to draw more, I want to get rid of those lines. What is going on? Sometimes I gotta really zoom in. What I've learned about drawing on the iPad is that I need to print out very large reference photos, because I like to zoom in, and then using the small reference, which is only like this big, but having the face be larger to get into some of the smaller areas is challenging. Thinking about the lower lip here. Tucks in and over. This lip is covered by the beard. This cuts over. How's the guys going? It's hard to draw, listen, and chat. I'm learning. I just need to have more coffee. Do you like the painter Ribera? He met Velasquez on both Italian visits. I'm a big Ribera fan. giant Ribera fan. My favorite painting of his, which is kind of odd, you guys probably have heard of this, called The Bearded Woman. Check it out, by Ribera. But I think Ribera's Boy with the Club Foot, I think it was actually used to be in the same room as the Mona Lisa at the Louvre. Almost they moved it. I think it was like on the other wall. I haven't been to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa in like probably 10 years. But back then when I did, it wasn't far away. I'm going to go into the eyes, right? So my eyes are usually the center point of my sketches. I'm going to erase away just a little bit, thinking about the turn of this. Really want to kind of get some of these beautiful kind of movements. This cheekbone, the way he painted it, the zygomatic arch here is really, really, really well done. And then the structure of how this kind of pulls in, the sclera in the eye. And then the distance from here to here. So we're kind of finding the bridge of the nose and the simplicity of it. And even though we're drawing this and thinking about composition and light and dark, we're still kind of picking up some aspects that we would want to have about painting, right? How to simplify within paint, values, and how one area kind of flows into another area gently. It's definitely valuable when it comes to painting. This lid over here kind of comes over. Looks pretty good. I want to make sure we're upright. This looks good. This turns. There's room on this side here, which brings us up to this part of the brow ridge. Thinking this kind of turns as well. What's the distance between here? So if we think about the shadow of the nose through here, see if you guys can see my cursor. Are you only thinking 2D shapes at this point, or are you still considering form? I'm kind of thinking about both right now. I'm kind of moving back and forth between form and shape. In the very beginning, it's all just 2 dimensions. But plotting, I see that the beard kind of comes up a little higher than I have it. This space right here looks pretty good. This comes up into the bone of the zygomatic on this side and tucks over. And so that's a 2-dimensional thought, right? Where I'm kind of, and I'm kind of outlining the area just to kind of block that in as a note. I always say I'm using notes from my future self because interesting to see the pupils here too, the really structure of this fly in the studio. He wasn't bothering me earlier. This gets lighter. The brow ridge in between. I have a fly swatter. Did you guys see that? Simplify that. Now I'm going to come in from the dark side using the shadow, using thinking about the structure of the nose here, which is really prominent. This cuts forward like that and over. Comes up. Let's see what's going on with the beard. This is that underplane of the nose. Simplify that. This pulls down. There's a little bit of a movement across here to this upper lip, which comes down. This gets all shaded darker. And let's pull into the top part of the mustache here. You guys can see all this stuff. Okay, cool. trying to think what other pieces of artwork which would be really fun to talk about. Do you guys know, from my traveling, one of my favorite things to draw when I was in Florence, you guys might know, it's the Nicodemus statue in the Museo d'Opera del Duomo, which is a Michelangelo self-portrait. I think that would be kind of fun to learn more about, because I know that it was supposed to top his tomb. I'm thinking about this entire wedge shape right through here, but he hit a vein when he was sculpting it, and so then I think he just left it in, they say, like a basement or something for his assistants to hack away at to learn to sculpt better. What's kind of cool about this also is that, so using Procreate, what's really neat is that it records all of my steps for doing the painting, which is kind of neat. And at this stage, I feel like I'm getting a little too linear. I'm going to come in, just kind of knock in a little bit of what's going on there and here. What it does is it records our strokes, which is kind of neat. So I'll show you guys. It does, I figure you guys can see it video, and time-lapse replay. So it's kind of neat to kind of show you guys the steps here we went through. And as a content kind of thing is, I'm going to post a video about this, I think, as a short on the channel here, which I think would be extra added value. If the drawing turns out okay. Isn't it kind of neat? So it kind of shows all the steps. Oh, interesting. So I am live on Facebook, except it is not viewable to people, to the public. It's weird. The privacy is only me. How do I change that? See, you guys, I'm learning every day here. Partnership, edit post. That's weird that they would make it so that they have it posts on there, but it's only viewable by me. I'm like, I'm doing the post. Edit. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. It won't let me change it either. Let me get on my computer real quick. Thanks, guys. Figures in the landscape. I would be interested in early 20th century American West artists. That's great. Yeah. Those are some of my favorite painters. Bear with me, guys. Engagement, profile tagging. Oh, it's doing some crazy stuff right now. Settings. Okay, it's giving me like stream keys and everything. I just want to change the... Yeah, it's only video options. I guess I can only do it... Well, good thing you guys are on YouTube. Okay, so Facebook's a fail. Let me go back to this. Let's go draw some more. Sorry about that, guys. We're done here. So looking at kind of the drawing here, I'm going to... Kind of neat, we can kind of put the the actual guy almost exactly to scale next door. Starting to come together. Don't have his character yet. And I think the values are definitely not cohesive yet. But we're still finding our way, right? We're just sketching live and talking about Velasquez. So I'm gonna go over everything again to darken everything, because this is when I draw with charcoal, I'm always just taking the pen and smearing it and softening edges and everything. So this is kind of my way of softening everything that I put down there. I'm not losing any information. I know this is going to get darker, simplifying, and also thinking about a little bit, I'm going to move him over a little bit, the background, right? So that already helps to kind of unify our values, is setting up a little bit of a limited value range that we can work from. And I know that this gets darker through here. We're going to darken up his hair, because that shape is really a beautiful kind of abstract impressionist kind of shape. It's funny, Rodney, I'm just painting a figure in the landscape now for this Western show. And it was super fun, but also really challenging. I posted about it on the Patreon page, where I painted a woman on a horseback at dusk, and she's kind of in silhouette, but kind of not, and the colors are very, very vibrant purples and blues and electric yellows because of the dust being at dusk. It was really, really kind of a fun painting, but super challenging, because I didn't really have the reference that I needed to make the painting a little bit better. When I take photos for portrait commissions and stuff, I'm very specific about the lighting and so much, and that when I don't have control over that in the natural environment, I'm super challenged. And I learned so much from doing this figure in the landscape piece that I'm excited to do another one that's going to be bigger, because this one I did was only 16 by 20 inches. And sorry, just drawing in a little bit of his collar here. Love the lace collar. It's funny, I don't know if to look at either the screen where I have the reference, or I'm looking at this. It's kind of funny. I keep moving back and forth as I'm drawing. I should be looking at the printout, because it's a little bit more accurate, because I can put it next to the drawing. This area gets a little lighter in the face. I'm going to unify these values to make it look more like him. Do I sight size most of the time? It's kind of like a combination. I call it relative sizing. Everything is in context. I'm excited. I'm doing a painting from life class. I'm teaching in Denton, Texas, at the end of September 6th or 7th. I'm going to put that, I think it might be on my list, I have a QR code that I always post in videos that have my latest workshops, but we're teaching. And so it's kind of like a combo of what we're doing here is kind of this idea of just blocking in large areas and shapes from the model, and then comparative measurement for everything. I wouldn't say it's sight size. I don't step back and judge with like a ruler across different areas. I do kind of step back a lot to see how values are organized within the portrait, but not Not site size per se. I feel like site size you have to be at a certain area, a certain place, that it's kind of limiting for circumstances. Like if you're just at a bus station, just drawing people walking by, or you're at a cafe having fun, just drawing, or for me, it's funny. I have a studio dog. My puppy Luna is always in here with me for the most part, and I sketch her when I'm working on the computer. And I just do I'll show you guys. I just take like a marker and I'll sketch her like sitting there waiting for me, just on her little dog bed, or like the back of a guitar. And these are like 2 minute, not even like a minute, just gestural sketches and stuff on my to-do list that I have in my studio. And I couldn't do that site size because it's just in a sketchbook and everything. So those are a lot of fun. Constantly filling up like just sketchbooks. Not as much as I used to. Now it's a lot of this is a to-do list, or this is a to-do list. So thinking about softening some of these edges of his beard here. And so we have some of these lines that I still have in my sketch that I'm using for form that I kind of want to come in and adjust a little bit. But as we're starting to get the values in, I'm thinking that's starting to look a little bit more like him. Looking on his forehead here, the light that kind of comes in and spreads across his forehead over the brow ridge, which is really beautiful. Someone goes, "Oh, that's so cute." Okay, thanks. And how the light comes through here on this side of the cheek and jumps into where the mandible and the nasolabial fold meet that we can barely see. And thinking about the sculpting out a little bit of the orbital cavity right through the center point here, and then where this light gets softer through here. Going to hit the underplane of this wing of the nostril where the shadow is. It's going to simplify that whole shape. And again, just coming in across the entire form here to soften up edges. Soften up where the beard is. Let's get some value down into the neck. Hey Michelle, how's it going? Good to see you. Are you in New Mexico? I haven't seen you in a while. So what's really interesting with Velasquez and this piece is that just the choice of subject matter is pretty intense, right? Because he painted them in the middle of the 17th century, people in Pareja's position, right? Because he was literally enslaved for 20 years with Velasquez. These people weren't painted, unfortunately. It was all paintings and being painted, and all that was all pretty much reserved for the aristocracy, but this idea that Velasquez chose him was pretty incredible, and I guess as artists, like I see people all the time. It doesn't have to class doesn't really matter on who I want to paint. It's just who I think is interesting looking, and so like we know Velasquez would paint the court gestures and all of that stuff. And those are some of his best paintings because they really are a portrayal of the real life, like the realism of what the court was like at the time. It wasn't just like Las Meninas. It wasn't just the princess. It was everybody around the princess, the people that helped dress the princess and all that stuff. So it really, his choice of subject matter was really radical for the time period. You know, this wasn't a painting that he did to make money, you know. I say you know a lot because you guys know. Yeah, we definitely need to get together. Michelle's great. Every time she visits our house, she brings a 6-pack of beer. So I'm all for hanging out with you, Michelle, anytime. You got to talk to my social secretary, though. You know who that is. My plans are all based on her plans, on Shayna's plans. So we're going to be doing this actually every Wednesday, Michelle, out of the studio on the YouTube channel. How did you see this randomly on your YouTube thing or on your phone? I'm very curious because I'm trying to figure out how do you grow a YouTube channel. Getting a weird note here on my phone. I'm manifesting. Yeah. Let's get into some of these smaller areas in here just for put some highlights in. I guess I've been on here for about an hour now, a little over an hour, hanging out. I haven't kind of lost track of time. So it's also really interesting because we're talking about Velasquez and Juan de Pareja here, and what makes this painting again really special is so that exhibition that this painting was premiered at was a major painting exhibition, right? It was at the Pantheon in Rome, and again, you want to show paintings that you want to impress people with, right? And so by painting his servant and putting that in a major exhibit really put Juan de Pareja on a pedestal, right? Again, showcasing him as a human being as opposed to just an enslaved person. Now, what's also really interesting is that, so Juan de Pareja was his quote-unquote assistant, was his slave for 20 plus years, and Juan de Pareja would take notes and learn so that when he was released from slavery in, did we say 1654, I believe, he went on to be a successful painter. Everything he had learned from Velasquez, he had put into the service of his own work. I love this cheekbone right here. I'm probably making it too light, but we can come back in and glaze over it again. But just thinking about that, the fall of the light on this cheek and how it kind of pulls over. And then I don't love these edges of the mustache right here because this gets a little darker. So I'm kind of giving you guys my real-time feedback as I'm sketching what I'm thinking about. And then we jump across here and there's all this subtlety in the shadow, which we can kind of simplify, right? Haven't gotten to the collar at all. I'm really focused on kind of the portrait. I'm subscribed, but when you open your YouTube searching for something else popped up. Oh, interesting. That's super cool. Hi, Darius. How's it going? I need to figure out how to get the Facebook thing working. For some reason... Next week, I think I'm going to draw maybe a Caravaggio painting. That might be interesting. Shayna wants me to do the dark history of art. And I want to do drunk art history. So maybe I'll do the dark, drunk art history. I'm kidding. We are not drinking at 9 a.m., which... Next week, 9 a.m., Wednesday. Still don't have a cool name yet for this. I want this to be a series of sketching my favorite paintings and talking about the history of them, right? For me, when I used to go to museums, so I had a grant in 2003 to go to Italy. I remember I kept a sketchbook with me, and I would sit and I would sketch Juan de Pareja, even though this is in New York City. Any of the paintings I sketched, I tried to learn about those paintings, and it's kind of fun when now as like more of a fully fleshed out artist, bringing my wife to some museums when we were in Italy recently and being able to describe these paintings because I knew so much about them and the history from sitting there and sketching them for like 3-4 hours and then learning about them more when I got home. And so they become like friends, right? So being able to visit a museum and you're almost like visiting someone that you hung out with for 3 hours, you know, and that you learned all about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you know? And so this idea of art as engagement with life is really exciting. It's not just this idea of what it is we create. For me, doing this drawing might turn out to be garbage. It doesn't matter. Even if I'm in the museum, I'm not doing the art for anyone's sake except for my own, where I'm learning, I'm engaging. For you guys, hopefully I'm teaching you guys a little bit about Velasquez and Juan de Pareja, but also just the idea of the, it's so funny to say, the zeitgeist of sketching and being present. I'm currently writing kind of keeping all my notes into a book form right now, which is kind of fun on drawing. The folks on Patreon have seen like the first 2 chapters or the first revision of the first chapter, which, if you're on Patreon, check out. It's a kind of like a self-help, motivational, but then also understanding what it is we see and purpose-driven mindfulness book that I'm writing. Because I think that being present is really important when it comes to sketching. Not just how it turns out. Because I bet I could draw this better with music in the background by myself without explaining my process to you guys. But that's not what this is about. So again, softening up edges, knocking everything back into the atmosphere around the painting. So this gets darker. Zoom out so you guys can see a little bit better. Hey Rodney, likes and subs put you at the top of people's feeds. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how the algorithm works. I know that it likes some of my content, it doesn't like some of my content. I've been doing a lot of color stuff on there, like mixing colors. And again, I kind of use the YouTube channel as like things that I never got around to studying further. Like I have my palette, but I never really dove deep into every color that I use. I just found that I just started to like a color and I started using it, but then comparing it to other colors, like the blacks that I use. Like I didn't realize peach black compared to ivory black and what lamp black does. And so a lot more of the scientific aspects of the painting I knew a lot of, but I never really dove really deep into them. And so I'm actually meeting with a friend of mine who's kind of like my color and drawing color. Actually, he's a chemist, and he's an expert. He has like a couple PhDs, and he's brilliant. And we used to make paint medium together back in the day, like probably 15 years ago. And I want to get on the phone with him and ask him questions about fat over lean, questions that I want to get answers to, but from a chemist's point of view, you know. And he knows so much about that stuff. He's brilliant. His name's David Corcoran. He's based in London, and so I have a meeting planned with him on Friday, and I'm gonna record the meeting, and I have all these topics I want to bring up with him about fat over lean, alkyd mediums, chemistry behind paint, and I'm going to turn those hopefully into a series of videos on here that can be super helpful for folks. what's a wow masterpiece? Face blue, wide eyes. So coming in here, thinking about, I want to actually increase the size of this reference right here as well. How long can I do a live for? It's been an hour and 20 minutes so far. Okay. I'm kind of cramping up here, sitting in my chair. Let's see what everyone's doing. I'm going to take a little bit of not a break, but... So it's really interesting. So this portrait is, I have some of my notes here. We'll talk a little bit about while my hand kind of rests. So not long after doing this portrait, like I think I told you guys earlier, Velasquez freed Pareja. Juan de Pareja was freed a few months, and then I think it took about 3 years later he was completely free to be his own artist. And that this painting really kind of marks that significant moment, right? A subtle but powerful challenge to racial and societal norms of the day, that he freed his slave, and that his slave had learned so much about being a painter that he went on to have a successful art career himself. It's really interesting. And today, this painting, which is really cool because it's not of a noble person at all, is considered literally one of the greatest portraits in Western art history, and changed the way artists thought about portraiture, proving that a painting could capture more than just status, right? It captures the person's soul. It's not about what we're born into, it's about what is the inner person. And so this painting and Velasquez's paintings just kind of go beyond this idea of social class. And they get at the heart of the sitter, of the humanness of the person. And I find that really exceptional. I'm curious if anyone's going to watch all 120 minutes of this, except for Rodney. I think Rodney came in early. I don't mind if you jump in and jump out. It's a long but fun session. So let's get back to sketching. One thing that's kind of interesting, I thought was really cool, is how did this painting end up in the Metropolitan Museum of Art to begin with, right? So, again, he didn't really do the painting to be sold. So after being painted in Rome in 1650, it says that the painting remained with Velasquez. Upon his death in 1660, his possessions, including many of his paintings, passed down through his family and associates. Though a lot of the detailed records for this period are sparse, eventually by the 18th century, the portrait entered a prominent European art collection, where it was circulated among a number of different noble families. And then by the late 18th and early 19th century, the portrait surfaced in Britain. It came into the prestigious Radnor collection, belonging to the Earl of Radnor at Longford Castle in Wiltshire. Oof, that's a mouthful. The Earl of Radnor at Longford Castle in Wiltshire. It remained there largely out. It wasn't in public view at all. It was just admired by these elite artistic circles for its realism and emotional depth. And throughout the 19th century and early 20th centuries, though, Velasquez's reputation started to grow, and it really elevated that prestige that really helped gain value to his work, right? So he started to become known as more of a substantial member of art history. His ideas and concepts and paintings took off. And so recognizing that, the Radnor family, actually in 1970, it's funny, in November of 1970, the Radnor family, needing to raise funds for estate purposes, decided to auction the portrait off. Recognizing the importance of the work, the Metropolitan Museum of Art determined to secure the painting, participated in a heated bidding at Christie's auction house in London. Amid intense international competition, the Met acquired the painting for a then record-setting sum of £2.3 million, which approximately $5.5 million at the time. It was, at that moment, the highest price ever paid at auction for a work of art, and it set a new global benchmark. So when the painting now that the acquisition by the museum basically just says, upon arrival in New York City, the painting was prominently displayed at the Metropolitan Museum, drawing immense crowds eager to see the celebrated masterpiece firsthand. I was one of those guys. Not in 1970, though. It was always one of my favorite paintings to visit at the Met. You know, I made a beeline to it every time. You know, you go up the stairs and you go right. Yeah, you just make a right-hand turn and go into two different rooms. If you guys know the Met, if you guys studied art in New York, you probably do. You know exactly where the painting was hanging, and even the color of the wall, which was, I believe, at first it was a gray, and then they moved it somewhere and they changed the color of the wall. Cool. So I'm seeing areas in here now. I'm going to pick up, since my hand was cramping up. Let's call it Wednesday Cramping David's Hand Painting Day. I don't know. I'm excited to work on stuff in the studio today as well. After we get off here with the live, I'm working on a portrait commission, which I'm actually going to probably post. I am going to post a progress shot on the Patreon page. The Patreon page really has been incredible. The people on there for supporting these lives and everything, because YouTube pays, I think I'll get $5 from YouTube for hanging out and teaching, and this is more fun for me though. Whereas the Patreon page, for like the $60 someone covers for a year, $5 a month, they help support what's going on over here, which is kind of cool. His eyes can be a little bigger. It's funny, I always spend I place the eyes quickly, but don't work on the eyes till later on. Let me get into that space a little bit better. And then the light on that top part of the sclera to really curve that sense of the ball of the eye. Just beautiful, masterful. Again, Velasquez. There's that light right there. Let's pull onto the other side of the eye. When I work on eyes, I never do one eye only and then go on to the other eye. I work on both at the same time so that there's a connectiveness to them. Again, what's really awesome is that we can rewind this video, guys, and you can see exactly where I was when I first started the sketch to how I quote-unquote finish. I say quote-unquote finish because nothing's ever finished, right? I'm going to leave this portrait and it's not going to be completely finished. Like, there'll be more information that I can put into here to make this even better, more understood. I don't say detail so much. I think that everything that I put into a sketch makes it more understood. Like, I haven't gotten down to, there's this beautiful, as we kind of move from the nose, it's funny, my cursor on my computer was right there, this part of the nose, there's this break in here, and there's this highlight here in the nose. Hey Gary, how's it going? I've learned so much from you. You're truly amazing, and your ability to I appreciate that. Any plans of coming to Colorado in the future to do teaching? It's so funny, we live in Albuquerque, which is close to Colorado. We go to Colorado a lot. We actually teach, we have a private student that's she's turned into like a kind of a family friend, who has a place in Telluride, Colorado, and we go up there a lot. But no plans of like a class thing yet. Are you near Denver? Thinking about this top lip, this turns, thinking about the form, how that turns, pillows forward. Man, there's so much cool stuff to draw in here. I want to actually bring up the paint portrait here on my computer so I can see it even closer. I need to see things larger than I can on the screen and on my printout so that I can draw it better. Doing 5 minutes of ink sketching almost daily as a challenge lately. This was a good opportunity. Hey, Tess. Yeah. Oh, it's so much better. I brought the image up on my computer so I can draw from it. I'm learning. Next Wednesday will be even better. Hump day drawing? No, that's not a good name. You guys hear that scratching? This dips lower a little bit. I see a little bit of light. Now, this is so much about the impression of how Velasquez painted, was that these edges are they just meld into each other and just very delicate. There's almost no hard edges. So now I can see a lot more of what's going on here from the screen. I'm not going to do printouts anymore. That space from there to there. Sorry as my voice gets lower as I start to concentrate a little more. And this lower lip is actually tucks under way differently than I have it. You can really see the form. This actually reminds me of a really great lesson that you guys might dig. So drawing, it can be like really intimate, right? With models and whatever. And I use myself a lot to do sketches. And that's what this is. If you want to really do a drawing that is like a judgment-free kind of sketch, it's to do self-portrait, right? Grab a mirror, put it 5 inches or so, or whatever, just right in front of your face, and sketch your face. And hold still, and you'll be able to see the form on your face. It's really interesting. You're seeing the form on your face, but then you can almost like go and touch your face to see how it's turning. So you can see things in a way that's very, that you wouldn't be able to do from a model. This is really interesting. See, so I have this going straight across, and it's actually tucked down a little bit more. These subtleties are really, and accuracies, really make it so that we're not just doing a caricature of the subject. We're actually trying to spend time capturing the realness of the person. And so for me, I'm kind of walking in Velasquez's footsteps by doing this. Like, Velasquez was here. He left his mark through this painting of this edge here in this movement and this soft edge here. It's kind of, it's going to be this selfishly, I think I'm going to learn a ton from these Wednesday sessions. So we have some questions here. I don't know what that language is. I apologize, Malika. What do you think about sand erasers for charcoal? Sand erasers. I don't know what sand erasers are. Unfortunately, sorry. I use the erasers I use are the Factus BM2. I have a video on here about drawing. Starting to get him to look a little bit more like him. Still feel like I'm going to work on the eyes. So we're going to pull into being able to see the eyes better here. Because I have, again, I'm learning, so I have this reference that I can really delve deep into. Why won't you get bigger? Gotta open it up in the, oh, that's cool. Okay. This is super cool. Being able to see it now in a way that I'm going to take down I've been using the highest, the widest eraser. Now this, this part gets a little lighter through here. There's that highlight. Kind of ducks down lower. We got the canthus underneath here, but this gets lighter than the canthus. I'm going to get the eraser to... How long have we been going so far? Sorry guys, this is like the longest video ever. I got nowhere else to be. It's already 10:30. I'm gonna go. My day is basically gonna go probably jump on the bike. My wife and I have a Peloton bike for exercise, and do that, and then come back in the studio and work on this commission. Oh, anyone that's out there that's on the Patreon page, do I post too much? I feel like if you get emails for every time I post on there, it's like twice a day of stuff I find that's interesting. I wonder if you guys can mute that or not. I hope so. Okay, so this gives that full part of the eye here, and then we pick up with... Oh, that's much better. This comes down and over. Getting there. Again, some areas are getting a little too light and too dark, so I'm going to probably come in and do a glaze over everything. Hey Jay, how's it going? Colorado Springs, Gary? That's cool. That's where the Air Force Academy is, right? So let's do the other eye. And again, what's great about these sketching in here is that this is very gestural and kind of impressionistic already, which is nice. So I think actually the beard might start higher up than I have it, as I'm starting to see things in a better way from this part of the nostril. Hey, thanks, Jay. Rodney, to heck with the to-do list. I don't really have a to-do list today. This was on my to-do list, was to have fun drawing. Still need a cool name. I don't know, Wednesday coffee draw sesh. Maybe it's Wednesday's the worst. It could be like Old Masters Wednesday. We draw Wednesdays. Any ideas, guys? Coming back into this other eye, again, that impression, that light of the sclera is everything. It's so amazing. This light comes up a little bit higher up into here. This gets cut a little bit more at that edge. Sorry, I'm like vocalizing everything that I'm seeing within the sketch. And everyone here is kind of cool because this is like my focus group for my channel, my YouTube channel. What other stuff would you guys like to see on the channel. That'll help. And make sure you like and subscribe if you are having a good time, if you like this content, and share. Just squinting at that, it looks okay. I'm going to come in and darken some of the areas now a little bit. Kind of redraw that shape. Everything is back and forth. Check my last message, please. Drummer. What do you mean you don't have a good name? I have you Gold David. Is that what it is? I mean a good name for the Wednesday sessions, because I need it. It needs to be clickbait, or no one sees it. Unfortunately, I'm kidding. That's one thing I don't love about YouTube, is that having to put like the secret hack of the old masters. And I'm like, geez. Sometimes it's interesting because I posted a video yesterday about painting in the shadows of a painting I'm working on, and I do use, which is kind of interesting, flake white in my shadows, and I think that's kind of unusual. So it's kind of that is kind of an unusual quote unquote hack. You know what I mean? So I try not to be too clickbaity. But all of the recommendations and stuff for channels are like emotional, instructional. Like I'm learning, it's really has been challenging to. Okay. So as I'm drawing this now, I'm thinking from this side, this space is smaller. Yeah, change the opacity. I'm gonna go down on my size. Typo. You gave me gold? What does that mean? Wait, have? Did you, so is that like a tip kind of thing? Sorry, I'm really bad at this. I gave you gold, David. I appreciate that. If tips are cool. I almost want to like blur out the eye just a little bit too with the eraser, so it kind of fits in. What I'm doing is I took the eraser down, and you can kind of take the edge off of your lights and darks a little bit to soften up edges. And so where this area is a lot lighter than on the sketch than it should be. Again, thinking about it very impressionistically. Class in the name may help get interest. Class. Classy Wednesdays. This part of the zygomatic arch gets a little darker, and so now coming with the dark. I need to ask ChatGPT their opinion. So it's this push-pull between dark and light. And again, hopefully you guys can see the cursor. Go back to that structure on the nose. Fueled by coffee, Wednesdays. Oh, coffee and composition. I like that. I think I want to put drawing, though. Drawing and art history or something in there. Because I think that There's this really great light right through here. Right through here. Really going to play up some of the highlighty areas right now. Just cuts in. Could probably name it like just another YouTube video that's not going to get any views. Wah, wah. Drawing downers. Getting there. Really starting to get the structure of his face a little bit. I'm going to go back into this eye just a little bit just to push up the value. Push and pull, push and pull. Oops. Drawing in the footsteps of the masters. Wednesdays. That upper lid is really beautiful right here. Oops. I did that on the wrong screen. Oh, Drawing Collective. That's cool. Drawing from history? You guys are coming up with some good ideas here. Hey Jim, how's it going? Drawing history. Wednesdays. Well, because it's interesting. They're just live on Wednesdays, but they're going to live forever on YouTube. So Drawing Wednesday, or Drawing from History. Drawing Closer to History. I use Drawing Closer to when I have my drawings of my Holocaust survivors that I shared their testimony. I call it Drawing Closer to Testimony, so it's kind of similar. Because I play their testimony as I do the sketches of them. I have a few of those on here too, you guys could check out. They're in time lapse. Looking through, I have all my notes. I think I've talked a lot about the history. Okay, so then I feel like we're getting still a little too bright here with the highlights in comparison to the reference here. We can kind of put them side by side-ish. Squinting. I feel like I'm going to darken. I'm going to do a different layer this time though and darken over everything. Cassin's Drawing into History. I don't know if I want my last name in there, but I like that. That's getting closer. Drawn to Art History. See, just by doing that, it's kind of odd. I just literally took the same value over his face, and it just unified everything. And we can bring it up to that value. And that already helps, I feel. And then we can dig into this layer with the eraser to really hit what we see as our stronger highlights here. There's this highlight kind of up through here. Oh, that's interesting. Chasing the Masters Drawing Collective. See, as I squint, like this lower lip is a lot lighter. I've totally neglected his lace collar here. Going back to that initial layer here, I see that I'm really squinting at kind of this part. It's too dark. But I like that movement, and I think that this movement gets a little bit wider in the zygomatic arch. That light is so freaking beautiful. And how it cascades over top of squinting, right? So this might come in a little too far. Yeah, getting it closer. Getting closer to the likeness. It's so cool though. Okay, so just think about this, right? Just spending our time really getting these subtleties in place. Really, and also learning about the history of Juan de Pareja and the relationship with Velasquez. For me, it's having a moment. Even like this is like doing sketching from memory, right? It's just this way of mindfulness. And then we have this really beautiful, where does that sit? A little bit of his ear. I just never noticed that was part before of the painting. This will feel like we could get a little wider in this part of the eye. His eyes are a little bigger than I have them. Awesome, guys. You guys have any questions at all? Shoot, I'm going to probably wrap up soon since it's been almost 2 hours. And before I go, I'm going to kind of do I'll show you guys a time lapse. He's at a little bit of an angle there. Getting there. I almost want to go again. Darken up the value. I'm judging it. I feel like this could come. I gotta make sure he's straight up and down when I pinch, because sometimes if pinch it at an angle, you see it at an angle and you can't get the drawing right because the iPad shifts. If you guys know what I mean. And so I feel just soften that edge. Pull in these darks a little bit. Thinking about the form. It's funny, I feel like I'm thinking a little too much about the form versus how Velasquez painted. Almost like thinking of like, what's the Terminator line that we're going to use in the shadow. But that's not how Velasquez drew. That's how I draw. I'm going to take this layer. Oops. I'm honestly still kind of a newbie on Procreate. Slightly lighten through here. The right side of the nose in shadow. Over through here. Needs help. I feel like this can kind of spread over. It's a little bit more prevalent, this edge, as it pulls into the cheek. And that eye still, I gotta get this upper lid here. That'll really help actually, yeah. Making sure I got everyone's questions on here. Did I lose the image on here though? Sorry, guys. Oh, it shrunk down really little. I'm a professional. Awesome, guys. I think we're going to end it there. We're just at 5 minutes from modern interpretation of Velasquez's painting. I'm going to simplify what's going on in the shadow here. I'm going to get this little part of his lace. You're talking about this part of the nose in here, Rodney? Differentiate from side. Yeah, I think like we could come in. There's like a shadow shape right through there. This dips lower. There's a little bit of a light that comes in under here. It's kind of odd and smushy what's going on in there. This comes in, this front plane could dip a little lower. Yeah, so like right through here. This is cool because I haven't zoomed in to really work on the nose at all. Then we have this part. That's the wing of the nostril that comes around. And it's got a really neat, like really light edge to it right there. And this tucks in. If you go here, this is where that highlight actually is. This is all light, 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 light. Light passage as it turns. This is fun. And then over here on this side, this comes down straighter than I have it. This picks up here and actually comes up over a little bit more. So actually the beard can be a little taller. Hey, thanks Rodney for coming in, checking it out. This is a lot of fun. And I'll see you guys, the guys over on Patreon. I'm gonna do a poll, I think, of what I should draw next for next week's. David is not for me to critique. I'm just enjoying the process. No, I hear you. Extra eyes on something is awesome. This gets a little darker through here. Or lighter, sorry. Really need to get that sense of that lid right through here on the eye. So not bad for about 2 hours and talking. Kind of fun. And I still want to come back in again one more time and simplify over top of this. Just to take out some of the edges. I didn't like that last stroke. And then we can lightly... Now, the image actually that I have on the screen, I adjusted from the Metropolitan's website. The Metropolitan's website, it was very, very dark. Like really hard to see. Actually, I could show you guys real quick. This is what they have on their site. And so if we were to use this more as a guide, as what we have as the painting, we can see that the drawing looks a little better. This gets lighter. Pulling in more light there. More light on the cheek. More light there. Awesome, guys. Drummer asks, when you do this or say a la prima sketches, do you try to set a time limit for yourself? Not really. I think I wanted to only be on here for like an hour, hour and a half or so. So a little longer is fine. I never put an expectation I'm going to do this in 3 hours. I had those when I was in school. It was always we only had a certain amount of time to draw or sketch from the model, and when you're done, you're done. I don't mind spending longer. Hope that answers your question. I'm going to put a little bit more atmosphere around him to match the actual painting. Can I see the fly? Let me get this guy. Damn it, I didn't get him. Awesome, guys. Thanks again for coming along on this journey to learn about Velasquez and the subject of this painting, Juan de Pareja, who is an amazing artist in his own right. Cool. This will be streamed ASAP. And I want to thank everybody for coming up, for being here again. If you like this content, this is arbitrary, or I have to say, obligatory, that I have to say, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. And I appreciate everybody over on Patreon for supporting the channel the way you guys do. And I really enjoy sharing with you guys over there all the like behind the scenes stuff and everything that's going on in the studio and ideas like this that are percolating, and also that you guys get access to a lot of this stuff beforehand, before everybody on YouTube. And I appreciate it. Yeah, that said, awesome, guys. Take care, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday for Drawing Closer to History Wednesdays. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.